What if I told you that thousands of adults in their 50s and 60s reduced chronic knee pain by more than 60% in just 8 weeks, without injections, surgery, or expensive treatments? You don't believe me? These are real outcomes reported from multiple clinical trials in Japan and the United States, where targeted muscle strengthening programs led to significant pain reduction and improved mobility in older adults with knee osteoarthritis. The real breakthrough is not that relief happened, but that it came from strengthening muscles around the knee instead of just treating the joint itself. And this matters deeply because, according to the Arthritis Foundation, over 30 million adults in the United States experience knee osteoarthritis, with risk rising sharply after age 50. The encouraging news is that research from Tokyo and Boston shows that specific strengthening exercises can restore knee stability, reduce inflammation, and rebuild confidence in movement, and that is exactly what we will show you today. Welcome back to another episode of the Senior Health Podcast, where East meets West to help you stay strong, steady, and independent. In a few minutes, we are uncovering the 5 exercises that directly strengthen the muscles supporting your knee and help you move with confidence again. And as always, Japan's oldest doctor is guiding us. Doctor, how important is this episode?
So important, John, because many adults over 50 are told knee pain is something they must accept as part of aging or manage with medication alone. But the 5 exercises I am about to share show how targeted muscle work can stabilize the knee joint and give people back years of comfortable movement.
And the research supports this completely, right? The level of improvement we see from these exercises often exceeds what medication can provide on its own.
It really is remarkable, John. But before we begin, please share with us in the comments your age and where you are watching from, since we'd love to know more about our audience.
That offer really lands because so many seniors feel like they are doing everything right, but still living with knee pain that quietly limits their confidence.
Yes, John, and I hear that often from my own patients who finally admit how much knee pain has changed what they feel capable of doing. Many believe the pain lives in the knee joint itself because that is where it hurts the most. But the knee is often just reporting a problem that begins in the muscles and the joints above and below it.
That reframing alone is relieving, because it explains why so many stretches and treatments never quite solve the problem.
Exactly. And this misunderstanding leads older adults to focus all their attention on the knee when the real issue is muscle weakness and poor alignment from the hip and ankle. They ice the knee, rest the knee, even brace the knee, and feel temporary comfort. Meanwhile, the true instability quietly remains.
I see that too, and it explains why seniors tell me the pain always comes back after a few days of feeling better.
Yes, and there is another layer that gets missed after 50. The knee is what we call a hinge joint. It really only bends and straightens. But the hip and ankle are the joints that control where that knee bends and how much pressure it experiences. When those surrounding muscles weaken with age, the knee suffers the consequences.
That makes sense, especially when some days feel fine and others feel unbearable, even when activity levels seem similar.
The key here is to remove blame from the body. Aging muscles do lose mass and coordination, but that does not mean damage is inevitable. It means the strategy must focus on retraining the right muscles at the right time.
I appreciate that compassion, because fear often keeps seniors from moving at all. When pain feels unpredictable, it is hard to trust your own body.
Of course, and fear creates guarding and tension, which only makes the knee stiffer. I have seen older adults shorten their stride, avoid stairs, and hold their body rigidly without realizing it. That rigidity increases joint stress. Once they understand what is really happening and which muscles need attention, the body often responds quickly.
That response is powerful because it gives people back control. It turns knee pain from something mysterious into something they can actually work with.
Yes, and that is empowering. Knee pain is the body asking for stability and strength in the right places. When seniors learn where that strength comes from, relief becomes a process rather than a mystery.
That idea of process feels important, especially for listeners who feel stuck. It makes me wonder how quickly the body can respond once the right exercises are introduced.
Often much faster than seniors expect. Sometimes the first sign is not less pain, but more confidence in the knee during movement. That is, the brain realizing the joint is supported again. And when that happens, healing accelerates.
That confidence piece really matters. When the brain feels safe, the body is ready to rebuild.
That is exactly right.
Now I am curious how you help people begin that rebuilding process safely at home. When you think about everything you have seen over the years, what is the very first exercise you start with to help that connection begin?
I usually begin with something so simple that people often underestimate it. But this first step is essential because it reconnects the brain to the quadriceps muscle, which is the primary stabilizer of the knee, and the first exercise is called a quad set.
That already sounds different from what most people expect when they hear strengthening.
Yes, and that difference matters. I ask people to sit on the floor or on a bed, with one leg out straight in front of them. The other leg could be bent for comfort. Then I ask them to tighten the muscle on the front of the thigh, the quadriceps, as if they are trying to push the back of the knee down into the floor.
I can picture that clearly, and it feels doable even on a painful day. Should people be adjusting anything else once they are in that position?
They should focus on holding that contraction for about 3 to 5 seconds, then fully relaxing the muscle before repeating. The goal is not force, but control. Many seniors have what we call arthrogenic muscle inhibition, where the brain shuts down the quad muscle to protect a painful knee. This exercise rewakes that connection.
That reminds me of seniors who say they cannot feel their quad working at all, even when they try.
That is very common, and it is not permanent. This isometric contraction works because it requires no joint movement, so there is no pain or fear to trigger inhibition. As the muscle fires repeatedly, blood flow improves and the neural connection strengthens. Many older adults notice the muscles starting to twitch or contract more fully within just a few repetitions.
That description is helpful because it gives people something real to feel for. How many repetitions do you usually suggest?
I always encourage people to perform about 10 repetitions of 3 to 5 second holds. If that feels comfortable, they can do 2 sets of 10 or even 3 sets of 10 throughout the day. There is no harm in doing more as long as the muscle is not cramping or feeling overly fatigued.
I hear that a lot in my own patients who want to know if more is better.
Exactly, and this is why I call it foundational. Once seniors can fire the quad muscle voluntarily and feel it working, the knee becomes ready for the next step. This is also when some notice less swelling around the knee, because the muscle pump helps drain fluid. But that next step only works if this brain-to-muscle connection has truly been established.
That makes me curious about how you build on that activation without losing it. So what is the next exercise you usually guide people toward once this quad connection is solid?
Yes, and this is where we begin to add movement while keeping that quad control strong. The next exercise is called a straight leg raise, and it builds directly on the quad set we just practiced.
That pacing feels intentional, like you are not rushing people ahead too quickly.
Exactly. To perform a straight leg raise, seniors start in the same seated or lying position with one leg straight. First, they perform that quad set we just learned, tightening the quad and locking the knee straight. Then, while keeping the knee locked, they slowly lift the entire leg about 12 inches off the floor or bed. They hold for 1 second at the top, then slowly lower it back down.
That reminds me of seniors who worry they need to lift higher to make it count.
They do not. The key here is control, not height. Lifting the leg while keeping the knee completely straight requires the quad to work harder, especially the part of the quad that also helps flex the hip. If the knee starts to bend during the lift, that tells us the quad is not strong enough yet, and we go back to more quad sets first.
That kind of feedback is helpful because the body is giving clear signals about readiness.
Exactly, and I always remind them to stop if the knee feels sharp pain or if the lower back starts to arch excessively. Some seniors try to compensate by using their hip flexors too much, which can strain the back. The focus should remain on the quad doing the work.
I hear that a lot in seniors who are afraid of making things worse. Knowing when to stop seems just as important as knowing how to move.
Yes, and repetition matters too. I usually recommend starting with 10 repetitions on each leg. If that feels good, they can work up to 2 sets of 10 and eventually 3 sets of 10. Many adults over 50 benefit from doing this exercise once or twice a day, especially before walking or standing for long periods.
That rhythm idea really resonates because knee pain often comes and goes with daily activity.
And once seniors can perform straight leg races with confidence, they often ask how to make it more challenging without equipment. That is when we introduce resistance in a way that feels safe and controlled. That next step can make all the difference.
That makes me curious about how you add resistance without increasing fear or risk. How do you help people progress safely into that next level?
Well, this is where we slow the movement down and use something very simple to create resistance. The third exercise is called a short arc quad, and it uses a small object like a foam roller, a rolled towel, a firm pillow, or even a blanket placed under the knee.
That feels accessible. I can imagine seniors listening and realizing they do not need a gym or expensive equipment to progress.
Yes, and that accessibility is essential. To perform this exercise, seniors sit or lie with a foam roller or towel placed under the knee, so the knee is bent about 10 to 15 degrees. From that position, they fire the quad muscle to straighten the knee, lifting the lower leg up until the knee is fully extended. The heel comes off the surface, but the back of the knee stays resting on the foam roller the entire time.
That sounds like a movement that isolates the quad beautifully without stressing the joint.
Exactly, and that isolation is the goal, because the knee starts in a slightly bent position. The quad has to work through a range where it is often weakest in older adults with knee pain. This builds strength exactly where it is needed most. I tell seniors to perform the movement slowly, taking about 2 seconds to straighten and 2 seconds to lower back down. And once that strength starts to build, the knee starts to feel more stable during everyday movement.
Amazing, doctor. Let's move on. When people have built quad strength through these first 3 exercises, what is the next exercise you guide them into to make sure the whole leg is supporting the knee properly?
Yes, John. Once the quadriceps is firing well, the next step is to balance that strength by working the muscles on the back of the leg. The fourth exercise is a bridge, and it strengthens the hamstrings and the glutes, which are essential for knee stability during walking and standing.
That makes sense because I see so many seniors who have strong quads but weak posterior chain muscles, and their knees still hurt. So how does it work?
Start by lying on your back with both knees bent and feet flat on the floor, about hip width apart. Arms rest down by the sides. From this position, squeeze the glutes and hamstrings to lift the hips up toward the ceiling until the body forms a straight line from the shoulders to the knees. Hold at the top for about 3 seconds, then slowly lower back down.
That feels approachable, like something older adults can do even if their knees are sensitive.
Yes, and I usually recommend 2 sets of 10 to 15 repetitions, resting about 30 seconds between sets. The focus should be on squeezing the glutes hard at the top and feeling the hamstrings engage to lift the hips. If seniors feel this mostly in the lower back, that tells us they are arching too much and need to focus more on the glute squeeze.
That reminds me of seniors who are surprised that a hip exercise can change their knee pain.
That connection is powerful, John. The glutes and hamstrings control how the femur, the thigh bone, rotates and aligns over the knee. When these muscles are weak, the knee often collapses inward during a movement, which increases stress on the joint. Strengthening them restores proper alignment and takes pressure off the knee.
I hear that a lot in seniors who notice their knees caving in when they climb stairs or stand from a chair.
It does, and once older adults master the basic bridge, they can progress to a single-leg bridge by extending one leg out straight and lifting with only one hip and hamstring. That version is more challenging but builds even greater stability. However, that is optional and should only be attempted once the double leg version feels easy.
That progression piece really stands out. It gives people something to work toward.
And once that foundation is strong, there is one more muscle group we must address. This final exercise stabilizes the hip from the side, which is critical for preventing the knee from collapsing inward during walking and turning. That lateral hip strength often makes the biggest difference in how the knee feels during daily life.
That really grabs me because I see seniors work hard on quads and hamstrings but still struggle with certain movements. What is that final exercise that brings it all together?
The fifth exercise is called a side-lying hip abduction, and it strengthens the muscles on the outer hip that control knee alignment. These muscles are often severely weak in adults with knee pain, especially after age 50.
I hear that a lot in seniors who feel stable going forward but unsteady when turning or stepping sideways.
Exactly. To perform this exercise, seniors lie on their side with the bottom leg bent for support and the top leg straight. The head can rest on the arm or a pillow. From this position, they lift the top leg up toward the ceiling, leading with the heel, not the toes. The movement should go slightly up and back, activating the glutes on the side of the hip.
That cue about leading with the heel is helpful, because I imagine older adults naturally want to turn the toe up.
Yes, and when seniors lead with the toe, they often use the hip flexor instead of the glute, which defeats the purpose. I always tell them to imagine pulling the heel toward the ceiling and slightly behind the body. That ensures the lateral glute is doing the work. They should feel the muscle contracting right on the side of the hip, almost behind it.
That feels like a movement that meets people where they are.
Exactly, and I usually recommend starting with 10 repetitions on each side. If that feels good, they can work up to 2 sets of 10, and eventually 3 sets of 10. Some adults like to add a resistance band around the thighs for extra challenge once the movement feels easy, but that is optional.
That reminds me of seniors who are surprised that such a small movement can make such a big difference in how their knees feel during walking.
That control is everything. When the lateral hip muscles are strong, they prevent the knee from caving inward during each step. That one change that reduces stress on the inner knee by more than 40%, according to research. It is one of the most important exercises for long-term knee health.
That really stays with me because it shows how one weak muscle can create a cascade of problems.
Yes, and once seniors have these 5 exercises working together, quad sets, straight leg raises, short arc quads, bridges and side-lying hip abduction, they often feel a dramatic shift in stability and confidence. But there is one trap that can undo all of this progress, even when the exercises are performed perfectly.
That really grabs me because I see seniors work so hard and still get stuck. Everyone, please stay with us. What is the most common mistake you see that quietly brings the knee pain right back?
I see a few common mistakes, again and again, all coming from good intentions. The first one is doing too much too soon, believing that more repetitions or heavier resistance will speed up healing, when in reality that approach inflames the knee and sets progress back by weeks.
I hear that a lot in seniors who feel motivated but end up frustrated by setbacks.
Exactly. Another mistake is performing these exercises with poor form, especially letting the knee cave inward during leg lifts or bridges. That misalignment reinforces the exact pattern we are trying to fix. And the third mistake is skipping the exercises on days when the knee feels good, when in reality, those are the best days to build strength and prevent future flare-ups.
That really resonates because consistency seems to be the hardest part for most seniors.
Yes, and none of these mistakes mean people are failing. They simply show that patience and proper form matter more than intensity. When exercises are done correctly, with the control and consistency, the knee often feels better within 2 to 3 weeks, and strength continues to build for months.
That really stays with me. It feels like the moment where effort turns into understanding.
I remind seniors that progress itself is healing, even on difficult days. When pain returns temporarily, it is not failure. It is simply the body asking for patience and continued effort.
That really grounds this whole conversation for me. Now, if you are still listening, leave us with a comment where you are watching from, like the episode and subscribe to the channel. Oh, and watch this next video right now.
Yes, please.
We've picked this one especially for you.